This was one of the most disappointing Memorial Day weekends in box office history. What movie came in first? What led the way for such a disappointment? Find out right now. I'm Adam. This is Does It Hold Up? Box Office Edition, where I cover the past weekend's box office and see what were the top 10 movies, take a look at a few more charts, flash back to a movie from the past, and hopefully just have a good time. As always, we start with what were the top 10 movies at the box office over the weekend, and Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, was the number one movie, but it fell well short of expectations. Furiosa took in just $26.3 million, which is far behind Mad Max from a couple years ago, which opened up to $45 million. That's what they were hoping for this movie. They were actually hoping more for around like 30 to 35, so the fact that it couldn't even reach that 30 is a really big disappointment for theater goers and the studio. In second place, another new movie this weekend, which, not gonna lie to you guys, I'm actually really happy that this movie opened up so low, because this movie is a cynical cash grab that doesn't need to exist. The Garfield movie took in just over $24 million, and that's a good thing. In third place in its second week is If, with another $16.1 million, only a 52% drop. It didn't open really big, but it also didn't drop really big either, so kind of balances out. It's brought in $48.7 million at the domestic box office so far. In fourth place is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in its third week, with another $13.4 million, only a 47% drop. It's just under $123 million already. In fifth place, in its fourth week, is The Fall Guy, with another $5.9 million, a 28% drop, $72.2 million already. In sixth place is The Strangers Chapter 1 in its second weekend, with another $5.5 million, only a 53% drop, pretty strong hold. Again, it's not something that opened up really big, but for horror movies, we tend to see 60+% drops in its second weekend. So holding at 53% is a victory for them. $21.3 million taken in. In seventh place is a new movie called Sight with about $2.8 million. In eighth place is Challengers in its fifth week with just $1.4 million, a 51% drop. It's $46.5 million so far, and I'm not sure it's going to do much more than that. In ninth place is Back to Black, the story of Amy Winehouse, in its second weekend. And just to be clear here, I haven't seen this movie yet, but everybody I know that has seen this movie says it's pretty bad, and the numbers are reflecting that really well. Sometimes biopics get good momentum. Amy Winehouse was beloved. I thought more people would go see this, but after finding out how bad of a movie it is, none of these numbers are surprising. It took in just over $1 million, well, $1,087,000, a 62% drop. It's just under $5 million at the box office, and that might be all that it gets. And in 10th place is a new movie to this list, but it is its second week in theaters, called Babes. It took in $1,060,000, a 550% increase over last week because it was only in a few theaters. This past weekend, it went up to 550, 600 theaters. That's why you see such a big increase. It's made $1.3 million so far. 4 movies fell out of the top 10 this past weekend. The first was Blue Angels after just 1 week. Tarot, the horror movie, after 3 weeks. Civil War drops out after an okay 6 weeks. And Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, drops out after an impressive 8 weeks. This is the part of the show where we compare last year, 2023, to this year's 2024 weekend to see how we're holding up. Are we doing just as well? How far behind are we? Are we kind of following the trends? Just where do we stand? So we take a look at the chart here, and we can see that it's the 21st weekend of the year. And last year, 2023, the total for the weekend was over $163 million. It was led by The Little Mermaid, which was supposed to be a huge success, did end up making quite a bit of money, but it opened really large, 95 million just for that movie alone. So that's a really healthy weekend last year. This year, with two movies opening up, 1 and 2 with about 25 million each, those two movies combined couldn't even touch what The Little Mermaid did last year, which is why we only made 101.6 million this year. Again, a small uptick from the previous weekend, which is a little bit of a victory, but not the type of victory that we're looking for if we want to compete with 2023. It's just widening the gap more and more each weekend right now. We really need a big movie to come and kind of save the day. Our next chart we're going to look at is the genre distribution, how much money has been made at the total domestic box office, and what genres are making the most of that money. No surprise, still in first place is action movies with over 42%, but we get a couple changes here. Comedy actually jumps up to second place with about 17%. Drama is in third place with about 15%. Horror moved up here into fourth place with just over 7%. Adventure in fifth place with just under 7%, 6.99%. Musical takes a big fall here with about 6.5%, followed by romantic comedy, then thriller and suspense, plus all other movies. All of those percentages combined make up the total gross we've had at the box office so far this year of $2,548 million. Well behind the pace of last year, which it is what it is. We're not going to catch up this year unless there's a really big hidden gem out there. And I know a lot of you are probably saying, well, that's, Deadpool and Wolverine. Is it though? That movie's going to do really well. But is it going to do Barbie numbers? Is it going to do the Super Mario Brothers movie numbers? I mean, it's very possible it's going to do Oppenheimer numbers, maybe 300 million, but I don't think it's reaching that $600 million. So, but only time will tell. Let's go ahead and take a look at what are the top 10 movies of 2024 so far. This is only counting the money that movies have made in this calendar year. In first place is still Dune Part 2 with 282 million. I don't think any movie is going to come anywhere near that number until we actually get to Deadpool and Wolverine in July. In second place is Godzilla Kong with 195.6 million, creeping ever closer to that 200 million. I hope it gets there. Not sure it will, but I hope it does. Kung Fu Panda 4 is in third place with 193.3 million. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes actually jumps up one spot to number 4 with 127 million. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire drops down one to 5th with 112.7 million. Bob Marley, One Love, and Wonka make up 6 and 7. They didn't move. New to the list is The Fall Guy, jumps into 8th place here with 74.2 million. Migration drops to number 9 with 73.2 million. And Mean Girls is in 10th place with 72.4 million. One movie dropped out of the 2024 top 10, and that was Civil War. All right, what we've been doing the last couple of weeks here is taking a flashback to a movie that came out years ago and saw how well it did in the box office compared to what its production budget was and all that. The goal of this is just kind of to see if the movie was profitable or not, based on the numbers that I could find. These might not always be 100% accurate, but they're as close to accurate as possible. And this week I decided to take a look back at 2004's Garfield the movie. Yes, that movie, starring Bill Murray as the voice of Garfield, which is just one of the funniest stories in all of Hollywood. He thought he was working for the Coen brothers on one of their movies when he got the phone call about this movie, not realizing that the guy who wrote Garfield, his last name was also Coen, but he's not part of the brothers. So he signed on to the movie thinking he was working with different people, signed the contract. When he ended up working on it, he realized he made a big mistake. But at least he stuck to his guns and made the movie anyway. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at Garfield the movie from 2004. Domestically, week 1, the studio brought in 60% of the 31 million that it opened up to, so they got to keep 18.6 million. In domestic week 2, the movie made another 17.7 million, giving the studio about 9.8 million. Domestic week 3 and on brought in 26.6 million. Studios only got to keep 50% of that money, so about 13.3 million. Internationally, this movie actually did pretty well, bringing in about 130.1 million. The studios got to keep 40% of that, so just over 52 million. And this movie did get a release in China, but it only made 2.6 million over there. The studio got to keep a whopping 22.5% of that, which equated to $580,000. Great job. The budget for the movie was around 50 million. The marketing budget was pretty big for such a small movie with $30 million. 60% of its budget was spent over on marketing, which is kind of crazy. So the total gross for this movie was $208 million. It netted about $94.3 million, but it only cost $80 million to make and market, so it has an estimated profit about $14.3 million. This is a movie that everybody kind of hates. I've never really heard anybody say good things about this movie, but that doesn't mean people still didn't go check it out in theaters. And maybe it was Bill Murray that brought him in, so hopefully he was paid well for this role, because the movie did take in, just in its theatrical run, an estimated $14.3 million profit. That's really impressive. So, there you go. Thanks for joining me to talk about this past weekend's box office. Are there any movies that you're looking forward to that you think could be a big breakout like Barbie or Super Mario Brothers from last year? Let me know in the comments below what you think is going to be that big winner of 2024. I'll see you next week with another roundup of the box office. Until then, be good to yourself, be kind to others, and as always, keep watching movies.